Hello, hello, hello. I hope you are doing so well. I am super stoked for today's episode because we have another guest. I interviewed Kristie Middleton, the Vice President of Business Development at Rebellyous Foods, and we chatted all about plant-based alternatives to chicken, Rebellious's mission, and their goals moving forward. And I got to learn a lot about the really engineering aspects of food production, so that was super cool. And if you're a vegetarian or looking to reduce your meat consumption or just generally curious about food or interested in engineering or not at all, this should be a really fun episode regardless. I also roped in a few of my pals into taste testing all of Rebellious's products, so you will all have immediate feedback and opinions on their plant-based alternatives in the second half of this episode. So stay tuned. I'll see you on the other side of this intro. Yeah, we are good to go. We are recording.
Great.
So yeah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Kristie Middleton. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for Rebellious Foods, where we make crispy, juicy, delicious plant-based chicken nuggets, patties, and tenders.
Love it. And can you just generally provide an overview of Rebellious Foods and its mission regarding sustainability and plant-based alternatives?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rebellious Foods not only manufactures these delicious products, but we also are a manufacturing technology company with a mission to make plant-based meat affordable for everyone. And we're doing that by developing novel production equipment. So what that means is currently most plant-based meat is produced or manufactured using off-the-shelf equipment, meaning it's using equipment that already exists for other purposes, but it was not designed specifically for plant-based meat. It's doing the job, but it's not doing a great job. That's one reason that plant-based meat is currently 2 to 5 times the price of animal-based meat. So, of course, these days the products have gotten a lot better. There's so much innovation, but it's still out of pocket for a lot of consumers. They may try it because it's innovative or novel. Maybe they saw it on TV or they've heard about it from friends, but they probably won't become repeat customers when it's unaffordable. And so, in our mission to make a more humane, sustainable society that offers products that are healthier for consumers as well, we feel like it's really critical that people be able to afford these as everyday items. And so, by deploying this novel production equipment, we will be able to bring the price down for plant based meat, but also increase the volume and the quality.
Yeah. And was the inspiration of the creation of Rebellious Foods just seeing this gap in the market and thinking I can do something? Because I know that the founder was also a mechanical engineer. Like that's part of her background, right?
Right. Yeah. So, interesting question. So, Christy Legale, our founder and CEO, and I previously worked together in a volunteer capacity when I was at the Humane Society of the United States, and she was working at Boeing as a mechanical engineer. She was designing airplane wings, and as part of her work as a volunteer with the Humane Society, she wanted to get Boeing to do a Meatless Monday in their cafeteria, and that's what I worked on. So, I was working with an organization where we had group of food service professionals who were helping large institutional food service providers from schools to the military, corporate cafeterias, and everyone in the middle to get more plant based options on menus. We did that through offering education to their staff, hands on culinary instruction, recipe ideas, meal ideas, etc. And it became a point where we were no longer really trying to make the strong case for it because it became a lot more societally acceptable and people were recognizing that they needed to offer these options. However, a lot of times what we were hearing is that they loved the recipe ideas that we were providing, but they didn't have the time, they didn't have the staff, they didn't have the equipment or the budget to do a lot of scratch cooking. And they really needed easy heat and serve solutions to their most popular menu items. Those menu items are ubiquitously nuggets, patties, and tenders. Of
Yeah.
course, pizza and burgers too. But those are always perennial favorites, whether you're talking about adults or college students or elementary school kids. And so I started talking to a lot of these food service providers and asked if they had a plant-based version of those very same products that was affordable, that was available through their same distribution channels, and of course was well liked by everyone. Would they offer it instead? And overwhelmingly, the response was absolutely. I remember being at a school kitchen where they didn't have any measuring cups or measuring spoons. So, of course, there's this great move back to scratch cooking, but a lot of places simply don't have these that capability, and they want to be able to offer more plant-based options. So I talked to a lot of prospective entrepreneurs. The startup world was certainly burgeoning at that time with a lot of people who were interested in introducing something new to the market in the plant-based space. But the biggest problem was how to do it affordably. A lot of people can come up with a great recipe, but I think the instinctual thinking is, well, we just need to produce in mass and then we can bring down the price of ingredients. But that's not really going to make the dent that we need to be comparable with chicken. And so Kristie Middleton, our president and CEO, she's the one who really looked at why is plant-based meat currently so expensive. And really it came down to that equipment issue, that we're using this equipment that isn't well suited to produce plant-based meat. Um, it's been used to make chicken nuggets, but for chicken nuggets, that's what it was designed for. For plant-based meat, which has very different properties, when you talk about the fiber in plants, cutting these things, etc., it's just not the best equipment for the job. And so she's the one who came with a great solution. And after she secured funding, invited me to join the team almost 5 years ago. So it's been quite the
Oh my
ride since
gosh.
then.
Yeah, so you've truly been there since the very beginning, the inception of it all, which is so, I feel like it's very rare to be able to see something grow as much as Rebellious Foods has. So that's super exciting.
It truly
And
is, yeah. And
yeah.
to get our, when we started getting these school customers, people who were really at the heart of the inspiration, we're like, okay,
Mhm.
we're actually starting to accomplish our mission, which is incredibly fulfilling.
I love that. And I know that you talked that you have the crispy, juicy nuggets, tenders, and patties. Is there any plans for expanding that product line or increasing the accessibility even more of Rebellious Food products to, again, promote that mission of sustainability at a larger scale?
I certainly hope so. That's definitely part of our plan. So, in terms of our current product lineup, one of the things that we believe is that success requires focus. So, we really want to ensure that we have the best product on the market for the best price. So, plant-based chicken is where we anticipate staying in terms of our product offerings. I can't say that in the future we may not get into another venture, but I've seen far too many companies develop a massive portfolio and not do any of it really well, and we don't want to be caught in that trap. We want to do what we're doing and make the best available product in the market. I will say though that we get a lot of requests for spicy versions of our products,
Really?
so that might be in the pipeline. However, in terms of expanding this opportunity, because we're developing this manufacturing technology, not only will it enable us to produce our product and do it at scale and higher quality, but we will be able to produce it for other companies as well. So if there's another company out there that's doing some type of similar plant-based meat, then we could be a contract manufacturer for them using our equipment.
That's super interesting because it kind of leads into the next question, which is like, what sort of partnerships or collaborations does Rebellious Foods have or have they established to further their mission?
Right. Well, I would say it's multifold. So, of course, we're working with our direct customers. And, for us, of course, and our investors, profitability is important, but that's not necessarily the reason that we're doing what we're doing. We're doing it because we have this mission to make a better world. So, to that vein, we are working with customers from schools to universities and even correctional facilities to offer plant-based options affordably to their guests. As well, we work with a host of nonprofit organizations from the Humane Society that I just mentioned. We'll be partnering with an organization called Veganuary this coming January to offer some specials and just help get the word out about why even going plant-based for a month can make a big difference and hopefully inspire people to open hearts and minds to a new way of eating that will hopefully carry out through the rest of their years.
Absolutely. I feel like once you find, I think the biggest thing from my experience personally is I have a lot of friends who are also vegetarians or have like done different for variations of it. It's always really difficult to move from what you used to something, it's a complete life change for a lot of people because meat is such a staple in especially the American diet. And a huge reason for that is because the meat industry is super subsidized. And so have you found that the plant-based protein industry gets like the same or equivalent subsidies as the meat industry does, or are you kind of like working against all of that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you make a really good point there on a couple of things. First of all, is yeah, it can be very difficult for folks, especially if they're used to a certain way of eating, which is why we're really focusing on those comfort foods that happen to be a little bit better for you. I was just at a food show last week in Indiana, where aside from the couple of big metropolitan areas, it's a lot of farmland, and we had folks coming by our booth who were a little skeptical at first, but once they tried our products, were like, oh my God, this tastes like chicken. Actually, this is better than the chicken that we serve in our cafeterias. So it's really exciting to see that people are definitely becoming a lot more open, but also that the response to the products is just phenomenal. To answer your other question, though, in terms of subsidies, that's one of the biggest obstacles that we're working against because, especially with the National School Lunch Program, the government offers schools commodity products that, in some instances, all they have to pay for is the processing of those ingredients, meaning they get the chicken for free. They just have to pay an operator to turn it into a nugget, patty, or tender because a lot of schools are not serving a whole drumstick or
Yeah.
piece of chicken these days. Um, we don't have those kinds of subsidies. So, unfortunately, that's stacked up against us. And that's why we're developing this novel technology that will enable us through this continuous process to simplify the production and hopefully bring down the price because the labor is a lot less. The energy that's expended, the footprint of the equipment. So, less real estate is going to be required overall. And so it will bring down our expenses and enable us to offer our products at a better price.
Mhm. And this is like I have no idea either, but like, do you know if there is any movement on the more policy side to enact subsidies for plant-based protein, or is that just no one's really touched it yet?
Well, there are a lot of organizations that are advocating for plant-based foods from a variety of perspectives. The Plant-Based Foods Association is a lobbying organization that's trying to tackle this issue by, addressing all kinds of things that are coming at the plant-based manufacturing industry. From you can't call it meat because it's not made from animals,
Yeah.
to that are addressing the inequity in terms of subsidies. I don't know of any specific legislation right now to address that, but I do know that there have been a number of government grants that are happening, like in California, where I'm based. The California legislature passed a budget last year that was to help, part of that budget was to help provide grants to schools for offering more plant based options. And the state of Washington did the same. So, not necessarily subsidies, but it is a way to help with encouraging these types of institutional providers to buy and spend their money or allocate or part of their budget to more plant-based options. We definitely have a long way to go and certainly
Totally.
would welcome that sort of support. And hopefully the government will see that because so many organizations from the World Health Organization to the United Nations are saying we have to eat less meat if we're
Mhm.
going to have an impact on human health or climate change, that they will get behind that, put the money where their mouths are, and actually support it via some subsidies for plant-based meat.
Yeah, awesome. That again, I had no idea, so really good insight. And you've brought this up a couple of times, and I definitely want to dive into it because I know that you have made a major effort to establish a presence in schools and have been pretty successful in Washington, I know at least. Like the whole Bellingham School District offers Rebellious Foods products, which is so awesome and very exciting. But what inspired this business move, and how are you continuing to grow in this space and expand into other states and school districts?
Good question. Yeah, so schools is really the backbone of the business that we're doing, and it was part of our mission originally was to be able to offer those products at a healthy price price for school districts to be able to afford. When I was growing up, we certainly didn't have any plant-based options. We had cheese pizza or grilled cheese if you wanted something that wasn't a hamburger or chicken sandwich in the
Yep.
cafeteria. And of course, the menus have gotten a lot better over the years, but products that have cheese are still a big staple. And over the last decade or decade plus, a lot of districts were trying to do Meatless Monday, but they didn't really have a lot of options available. And so what we're able to do is serve them something or sell them something that is entirely plant-based that their guests can enjoy. So yes, you mentioned Washington. We've worked with probably over a dozen school districts in Washington, from Bellingham all the way to the western part of the state, Enumclaw, Olympia. There's a laundry list of those, but also California, which is another low-hanging fruit. But some of the largest districts in the United States are out of California, Oregon, but all the way in places like Texas and Florida. And we've started making some progress in the Northeast as well. So it's really exciting to see that this is taking hold across the country.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to see how that continues to grow. Because, like, I was in school not too long ago. It feels like a long time ago. But yeah, whenever I had school lunch, it was literally like pizza, mashed potatoes, and like chocolate milk, and that was like what you had. So
Right.
I'm really excited to see that there's more coming in for the future generations who will inevitably like go on to hopefully continue creating and innovating in the plant-based industry space. So it's really exciting that they have those options now. And outside of the school space, who is your target market? Is it just anybody in general? Is there a target market that you have, but you've seen an actual market come up that you weren't expecting? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, our initial market and where we wanted to make a difference was in schools, but because we were founded in 2017, we had product that was developed in 2018, and then school product that was developed in 2019. Things went a little awry when we hit a global pandemic, so we ended up having to go into the retail space for a while to continue bringing in some revenue because nobody was going to schools in person, and schools were doing, meals that people could come and pick up and then reheat at home. Business cafeterias weren't operating, stadiums and arenas operating. So we really had to pivot. And, as a startup, that's something that we have to adjust to. So for a couple of years, a lot of our efforts were directed to retail, but it is a very difficult place to succeed as a young company without a massive marketing budget. Because when you think about going into a grocery store and picking out a product that you've never heard of before, it's unlikely that a lot of people are willing to take a chance without knowing the product itself.
Yeah.
So we're still in retail in the Northwest in particular. We're at Whole Foods, Albertsons, Safeway, and Metropolitan Market, and a bunch of other local independent stores, as well as in the Midwest. But our focus has fortunately been able to move back to K-12, which is what we were intended to do at the inception of the company. And it's really been exciting to see that product market fit there.
Yeah.
I will say that we are expanding into other channels, so college and universities and higher ed, as well as correction. So those are relatively
Mhm.
new for us, but also starting to get picked up in sporting arenas and entertainment venues as well, since those places are open back up. In fact, we are at Citizens Bank Arena in Philadelphia, which is where the Philadelphia Phillies play. And so it's exciting to see them make it pretty close to the World Series, but unfortunately
Yeah.
didn't make it all the way at the end.
Oh, that's so cool to like. I feel like you have to support that team then because you're like, oh, they help us, so we got to help them.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
That's so funny. And it's also fun. I'm honestly selfishly happy that you guys had to go into the retail space because as part of this episode, my partner and I are going to taste test all of the products and we're super
Oh,
excited. And there's a couple of grocery stores just down the street that have all of your products. So I was really excited to see that.
awesome.
Um,
Can't wait to hear what you think.
and I know that you brought this up because you didn't necessarily want to be in the retail space, wanted to keep your focus in K-12 schools, but I feel like that kind of focuses on the challenge of balancing sustainability and profitability. So, what additional challenges, besides, of course, the pandemic, have you encountered in balancing that profitability and sustainability, and how have you addressed those challenges?
Yeah, another great question. As I mentioned, retail is a very difficult game, if you will, because in addition to the marketing and just trying to stand out on shelves, it comes with another layer of consumer like packaging. So since we're talking about sustainability, as a company that we're trying to make a little bit of margin, or at least not totally lose on retail expenses, going out and finding packaging that's going to be appealing to consumers that will stand out on store shelves, that's also sustainable has been very hard because packaging is very expensive. It's a huge portion of what our cost of goods sold is. And so, unfortunately, the packaging that we're using is not made from recycled materials. It is recyclable, but it's
Mhm.
not like you can put it in any recycling bin. You have to kind of go out of your way. So, I feel like that's one area where we've had to make some compromises. And of course, it's painful for us. We have to do something that really goes against the grain of what the company's resolve is. But
Mhm.
there have been things like that where we've had to make some sacrifices. The good news is for the rest of our retail packaging, the cases are cardboard, recycled and recyclable. Um, and food service makes up the vast majority of our business, where
Mhm.
we're selling product in 10-pound cases. They are lined with plastic bags, but those are also recyclable. So at least it's bulk product that we're primarily selling. So I feel a little bit better about that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're selling consumer goods and you have to package it. And so we try to find the most economical and environmentally friendly way to do that. I will
Mhm.
also add that at our headquarters, we have wonderful operations team that really has tried to go out of its way to ensure that anything that we're doing in-house, we have one of those bins by Madewell, where we
Oh
recycle
yeah.
everything. We compost, and of course, there's some rubbish that goes out, but we really try to walk the walk and do what we say that we are out there to do, which is create a better world for everyone.
Absolutely. And it's the concept of don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. So
Right.
I absolutely agree with that. But of course, outside of just the packaging and waste reduction, what specific steps has Rebellious Foods taken to reduce its environmental footprint, such as like minimizing the food waste or energy consumption that comes with processing everything?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what our Mach 2 is what we call it, MOCK,
Mhm.
is the novel production equipment that we are creating, that basically is going to be far more energy efficient than the off-the-shelf equipment that I referred to. So
Mhm.
it will not only enable us to scale up and make plant-based products more widely available, we'll be able to use this technology to help other people as well. But once this equipment is actually deployed and installed, we will see an estimated 80% reduction in energy use and energy cost because we won't be producing it in a chilled environment. So, because of the typical manufacturing process, you would see workers in our current manufacturing process would be people who are working inside of a giant manufacturing plant wearing the equivalent of winter coats because they're working inside of a chilled environment where the dough that makes the plant-based meat has to be kept cold before it's breaded, battered, formed, and then frozen. And what we're developing is a fully contained automated system. So everything is inside, and that piece of equipment keeps everything cold. The workers don't have to stand there and freeze, but also it dramatically reduces the amount of energy that we have to expend. In addition to it being better for the workers and better for the cost, overall, it's great because it's fully contained. There's a 99% reduction in material waste. So if you're, instead of using this fully automated system, you're having to put it in bowl mixers or giant vats and scrape, there is a tremendous amount of waste that just naturally happens. In addition to that, we're going to see about a third of the footprint. I mentioned it takes up a lot less space because it is fully automated. Um,
Mhm.
so it's going to take up a lot less space inside of a manufacturing facility. So a lot less real estate involved, bringing down the cost, but also requiring a lot less environmental footprint.
Right. That's awesome. Super exciting. And I feel like it's just it's so interesting to hear about the innovative ways that companies are moving forward to create a better space for not only themselves and their business, but the space for themselves in the world and a continuing world. So really awesome to hear. And This is a little bit of a hard pivot, but I did have some listeners like write in a couple of questions, and the
Mm.
biggest one always seems to be that there's a concern about plant-based meat versus regular meat and like the protein content of it. So I know
Mhm.
that for people who are vegetarian, how much of their consumption should be allocated towards plant-based products versus just whole vegetables? And then for people who are maybe looking to substitute your products for what they would regularly have, like chicken nuggets or tenders or what have it, is it a one-to-one comparison for them? I think that's usually the biggest question is they want to know that they're not necessarily having to make a huge sacrifice because that seems to be a deterrent for most people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And again, it just comes back to that's the whole reason we created this product is because,
Right.
I personally am vegan. I've been vegan for close to 25 years. There are times when I want something that is, comfort food or that doesn't take a long time to prepare. And so our products offer that, to be able to have that comfort food, but also something that's really filling and satiating. But it also has, anywhere from 10 to 12 grams of protein per serving, which is equivalent to what they would be eating in terms of a chicken product.
Really good.
Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's a great source of protein. It has fiber, which chicken nuggets usually don't, or patties or tenders, but also it has no antibiotics, no hormones, very low in saturated fat, and of course, no cholesterol because it's coming from plants and not animals. Now, in terms of how much they should eat, I would say, just like anything, vary your diet so that you're getting a wider range of protein, vitamins, minerals, etc. I certainly don't eat it every day unless I'm at a trade show and I'm popping those nuggets in whenever I can take a break from talking to customers. However, it is a great comfort, convenient food, and I feel like if schools are going to be offering nuggets, patties, and tenders, that this is a great alternative to what they're currently offering because it is better for the planet. It's way better for animals, of course, and it is a little bit less unhealthy than a typical chicken nugget that you'd be serving in cafeterias, lower in sodium as well.
Love that. Yeah. That's really exciting. I feel like that kind of helps taper the kind of fear associated with changing a diet or stressing about protein. I know from the times that I have like switched from plant-based to non-plant-based and that like back and forth, it was always protein related because I was not getting enough protein. So it's nice to know that there's a super easy, reliable way to get protein that doesn't necessarily involve eating meat. Um,
Right. Yeah. And I will add, since you mentioned that you brought some things to experiment with, that, we wanted to make something that was really easy for schools or other institutions to be able to add to their menu. So all they have to do is, if it's, restaurants or university, they could put it in the deep fryer. You can air fry it or bake it or even microwave it if you absolutely have no time. But people can also use it in recipes. So we were just at a school show earlier this week where they used it in an orange chicken recipe. So with noodles and snow peas and carrots, and then adding some orange glaze to it, tossing it up, and the kids were like, "Oh my God, this is like a five-star restaurant!"
yeah,
So you can use it in recipes as well. We have some school districts that are going to use it for their Thanksgiving entree and the patties, and put some mushroom gravy over it and serve it with a side of mashed potatoes. So it can be served up like you would, a breaded battered piece of chicken, and not just served with barbecue sauce on the side.
that I literally did not even think about that. So now I'm gonna have to figure out all the fun recipes. That's so cool. Awesome. And then I really just have one more question for you, and it's what do you see as the biggest opportunities and or challenges in the plant-based food industry in terms of sustainability, and how is Rebellious Foods positioning itself to address them, both in the short term and in the long term?
Wow, yeah, that's a really challenging question. I feel like there is tremendous opportunity out there. We are at a really pivotal stage in the plant-based meat industry where we've seen a lot of contemporary companies that unfortunately just didn't make it through this recession, and through the current economy. And it's heartbreaking when you think about somebody who's blood, sweat, and tears, years of an idea that they were actually able to get to market, and that they ended up failing and having to basically give away everything that they had created. And we certainly don't want to be a victim to that. So we've had to be really smart about how we're spending our money and where we're spending our time. I mentioned success requires focus. So sometimes we have to double down on that and just remind ourselves of where we're seeing the biggest benefits, where we're seeing the best opportunities, and really reallocate our time to ensuring that we're staying on track there. The obstacles are definitely the current market situation and ensuring that, even these days people have even less money to spend than they did before. And so we have to
Yep.
stay incredibly competitive. But one of the things that I feel very heartened by every day is that whether it's our customers who really do believe in what they're doing, especially in schools, they get up every single day and they do some very difficult work. My colleague who did the event in Fairfax feeding the kids earlier this week got to see it
Mhm.
firsthand, where they're in the kitchen at 6:30 in the morning prepping for lunch because they're serving that many meals. These are people who really care about what they're doing. They also are incredibly not just passionate about what they're doing, they want everybody to succeed. And so I'm really heartened by having great customers, incredible colleagues who are very mission driven, but also knowing that what we're doing every single day and why we wake up gets to make a big difference in the world. And so I think so long as we can continue making smart financial decisions, we are able to deploy our equipment, then we really can make the difference in the world that we were set out to do at the inception of the company.
That's awesome. And a really beautiful, just like bow on the top of, I feel like all the other questions and your answers. They're all so eloquent, and I've learned infinitely more than honestly I was even expecting to. So thank you so much for all of your time. And I would love to just kind of open up the floor really quickly, like anything that you want to discuss, bring to light that you want to promote, anything like that.
Wow, great. Thank you so much for that, and I really enjoyed our conversation as well.
Yeah.
I guess one quick note, because you mentioned, the people who are potentially interested in trying out plant-based, it can be a little bit scary or daunting. In addition to the work at Rebellious, I also wrote a book several years back called Meat Less, with the idea that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And so I want people to really keep that in mind, that, when I became vegetarian and later vegan, if you did end up eating meat, like say somebody invited you over for Thanksgiving, that it would oftentimes feel like a failure, like you are no longer on the wagon. So I would just say everybody has an opportunity every time we sit down to eat, hopefully 3 times a day if we're lucky and we have the time and the money to be able to do that, to make choices that align with your values. But sometimes it's not always that convenient. And that's what we're trying to do, is enable it to be a lot more convenient and affordable for folks. But it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So do the best you can. And hopefully we'll be able to make that more humane, sustainable society together.
Love that. Again, a nice little bow at the top. That was truly, again, very eloquent, and I think inspiring as opposed to doomsday-y, which I think a lot of discussion around sustainability tends to lean towards. So thank you again for all of your time. It was genuinely so great getting to chat with you. Uh, Welcome to the back half of this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in for the interview with Kristie. It was super exciting and enlightening. And like I mentioned, we're going to get right into taste testing some of the products that Rebellious Foods offers. But before we do that, I did quickly want to run through the cost differences and some of the nutrition differences between the Rebellious Food plant-based nuggets versus one of their lead competitors, which is the Impossible plant-based nugget, and then Tyson's standard chicken nugget. Just for the sake of making it easy on myself and not rambling on too long, I'm only going to be comparing the chicken nuggets or the plant-based nuggets. But again, there are tenders, patties, etc. that Rebellious Foods offers. So first up, cost. Rebellious Foods plant-based nuggets come in an 8.4 ounce bag. And when I went to Town and Country, that's where I bought these from, they were $5.99. So that came out to be 71 cents per ounce. For the Impossible Dino Nuggies, as they are called, which is super cute. I looked on Target and found them in a 13.5 ounce bag, selling for $8.99. So it came out to be 67 cents per ounce, which is just a little bit cheaper than Rebellious Foods. And then for Tyson chicken nugget products. For that, I found a 2 pound bag or 32-ounce bag from Walmart selling for $6.96, which comes out to 21 cents, just about 21 cents per ounce. So obviously, with standard chicken nuggets, because the process is so fleshed out already, it is infinitely cheaper to produce that. But as far as the plant-based options, the Dino Nuggies and the plant-based nuggets from Rebellious Foods are pretty equal, save about 4 cents per ounce. And then looking at the nutritional value and factors here, for Rebellious Foods, there are a serving size of 5 nuggets, and the calories are 210 per serving, total fat 11 grams, saturated fat 4 grams, trans fat 0 grams. Cholesterol 0 milligrams, sodium 570 milligrams, total carbohydrate 18 grams, dietary fiber 2 grams, total sugars 0 grams, and included added sugars 0 grams, and then protein is 11 grams per serving. And for the Impossible Dino Nuggies, we are looking at a serving size of just 4 pieces, with the serving size accounting for 190 calories. Total fat is 8 grams of fat, saturated fat 1.5 grams, cholesterol 0 milligrams, sodium 380 milligrams, total carbohydrates 18 grams, dietary fiber 2 grams, total sugars less than 1 gram, and included sugars less than 1 gram of included sugars. And then protein is 10 grams for that serving size. And finally, we have the Tyson chicken nuggets. I don't think that this is correct. It says that the serving size is 90. I'm gonna assume that's grams and not actual chicken nuggets. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's 90 grams because 90 nuggets would be insane. But for that serving size, again, I'm assuming it's about 90 grams, which is going to be, I think, about 5 nuggets as well. The calories are 270. Total fat is 17 grams of fat, saturated fat 4 grams, trans fat 0 grams, polyunsaturated fat 6 grams, monounsaturated fat 6 grams, cholesterol 40 milligrams, sodium 470 milligrams, total carbohydrate 15 grams, dietary fiber 0 grams, geez, total sugars 0 grams, includes 0 grams of added sugars, and then protein is 14 grams. So 1 to 1, the Impossible Food versus the Rebellious Foods are pretty equal as far as nutritional value goes. I believe the total fat for the Impossible Foods is a little bit less, but they also have less protein. And otherwise, the total carbohydrates are pretty equal. There is added sugar in the Impossible nuggets as well, and there is not in the Rebellious Foods. And for the Tyson chicken, there's a lot more calories for about the same serving size as the other plant-based nuggets, and a lot higher percentage and value of fat, as well as add more cholesterol. Sodium is about the same, carbohydrates is a little bit less, and the protein is a little bit more than the Rebellious and the Impossible Foods version as well. So there are definitely pluses and minuses to each of them, but if you're looking for a really good alternative to chicken, then I really would say that Rebellious Foods is a really, really solid go-to. I know that it is more expensive, but again, like you heard in the interview, they're working on making it much more accessible and much more affordable because they are on the cutting edge of technology and innovation when it comes to producing plant-based nuggets. So just some food for thought. Haha. But that's the nutritional info, some of the accessibility as far as cost wise. And like, I was kind of surprised, honestly, when I looked at Rebellious Foods and where you could buy the products, and they're very accessible. At least in Washington, they are. I went to a town and country, but they sell them at like Safeways. I saw them at Albertsons, and then Tyson. I chose Tyson because it is like one of the largest chicken brands in the United States, so felt like the best one to go to. But otherwise, Thanks for listening to this section of the pod, and we're going to go right into munching on some Rebellious Foods plant-based nuggets, tenders, and patties, and you can hear what our thoughts are. In the studio today, aka my kitchen, we have Tim, who has made some special guest appearances on the pod before. And then we also have Julia, and this is her first time on the podcast. So thank you so much for participating. First up, we're going to try the chicken nugget. All right, first up was the nugget. And off the bat, it smells really good. It looks like a chicken nugget, so like no points docked there. It does taste really good. I really enjoy the taste. It has like a really good savory flavor. It has like a super classic chicken flavor. My only thing that I don't love, but this is also like super standard for any plant-based meat, is it is like a little bit mushier inside than I think you would expect from a standard chicken nugget. But that is honestly the really small issue. It's not like egregious. You're not biting into like mashed potato texture. It's just not like standard chicken texture, which is to be expected because it's not actually chicken, it's plant-based meat. But I really like it, to be honest. It was a clean first bite, and that's the rules for everybody participating in this. Clean first bite, and after we can add sauces of our choice. And kind of if that changes our thoughts and opinions on it, cool. But if not, like, I think it was a good chicken nugget, personally. I would eat that for sure.
All right, just had a bite of the nugget. It's got a decent crisp on the outside. It's not like the soggy chicken nuggets that you get typically in the freezer section. But it's also not just like super crispy.
That might have been my fault.
I think the taste is good. I think if I didn't know that this wasn't chicken, I probably would have thought it is. So it's definitely a one-to-one replacement. And I think I'm a little bit in agreement that if you're looking for like the specific chicken texture where there's like the striations in it, this is a bit more of like a conglomeration of it. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it's definitely kind of mixed up. It's not like specific little pieces, but the chicken flavor is definitely good. So I would have no problem swapping this out one to one.
My first thought is that it smells the most like a chicken nugget. So if that's important to you, and it might be to me, then I would give that a thumbs up. It doesn't taste as perfectly chicken nugget as a chicken nugget, but I think it's pretty close. And to be honest, I just drown it in ketchup eventually anyway. So once I get to that step, I don't think it's gonna be any different to me than a real chicken nugget. And the texture doesn't change anything for me, but that might just be because I don't cook my chicken nuggets well, and so it's all just the same. So I'd buy them.
Next up is the chicken tender. All right. Next up is the tender, and I just tried it, and honestly, I think I like that a little bit more than the chicken nugget. It has like a little bit more oomph, if you will, to the tender itself. Like it feels good to bite into, and it's really tasty. And I feel like the texture, whether I'm used to it at this point or not, but it like doesn't really bother me at all. I personally, I think I like this one a little bit more. And if I was a kid getting served this for lunch, I would be stoked as hell. Like no issues with that one at all. That I personally think the tenders, little tendies, are my favorite so far.
All right, I'm big on the tender shape. I like it more than the circle. It feels more chickeny, but in also the same sense, it's like it's more dippable. Like I feel like with a circle, you might get like one dip and then hit your hands. With the tender, like you've got a little dabble on your plate, you're dipping away.
Hmm.
If the chicken tender striations are important to you, then this is the nugget for you. Looking at this. I still prefer the smell of the little nugget, but the tender takes it away for me at least.
And finally, we are going to try out the chicken patty. I think I did all of us a little dirty by just giving us the plain patty. Um, I didn't like biting into it just by itself as much as I enjoyed the tender, but I can absolutely see how this would be absolutely banging in a sandwich. I think it's like I think it's the texture again. Like it has decent flavor, but I do think it would be even better in a sandwich with like other flavors that were complementing it or bringing out like its super savory taste and flavor. Um, so I think if I were to do like a tier ranking of all of the products that we tried, it would definitely be tendies on top, then the nuggies, and then this the patty. But again, I think I might have done this a little dirty by exclusively just giving us a patty to munch on and not like making it into like a standard chicken sandwich. So take that as you will. I think it's still a really good product, but out of the three, that is probably the lowest ranking for me, but still very tasty.
All right, just had the patty. I think I wish it was a little bit thicker. I think if this was on a like a chicken sandwich, I would need a little bit more patty to kind of hold up against the condiments because I like a lot of condiments and it feels like it's kind of like the thin like if you imagine you go to like the freezer aisle and you get like 100 pack of beef patties, they're all just like, is that cardboard? Is it not? I mean, it's like freeze dried. That those are typically thin, and then like the higher like quality ones or like the more expensive ones are typically a bit larger. And I think that if the patty was a bit larger, it'd be more comparable to like a higher quality meat based product.
I'd actually compare the texture of this to kind of like a Dr. Prager's veggie burger, where it's a little soft. And as someone who eats gluten-free bread, which is already kind of bland, I think that it would blend too much with the bread for me to enjoy in a sandwich. But the texture and the flavor and all that's fine. I'd just be more likely to eat this plain with ketchup and a fork than put it in a sandwich.
All right, so we just finished eating the rest of the chicken nuggies that were made, and I gotta say they're a little bit colder now, but they still hold up. Because I feel like if you have, say, like a McDonald's chicken nugget and you leave the thing out for 5 minutes, it's awful. So good, good consistency. Good consistency was not what I wanted to say. Yeah, they hold up when they're cold.
So I know there's no added sugar in these nuggets or in the tenders, but I have to say there is a little bit of a sweeter aftertaste with these, and I think with regular chicken nuggets or chicken tenders. And I noticed that in particular when I drown them in ketchup, which is obviously also sweet. So we salted them and we got back up to baseline, but I thought that was important to share.
I added something sweet to my nuggets and it made them sweet. Overall, I thought that the nuggets, tenders, and patties were really tasty, and I will absolutely be a repeat customer moving forward. I want to try some different recipes outside of just the standard, like heating up a nugget and dipping it into like ranch or ketchup or whatever it is. I heard from Kristie that you could do like orange chicken. That was one of the recipes that one of their chefs came up with, and I think that's really fun and cool. So I might experiment with some recipes moving forward and I'll just share them on the Instagram. But otherwise, it's really exciting and comforting to know that kids in schools that rely on those meals have protein rich options that fit their lifestyle because of the work Rebellious Foods has done and continues to do. And I'm really interested just to see how they continue to grow and flourish as a company. Personally, I would love to see some gluten-free options as well as dino-shaped nuggets just for funsies. But a huge shout out to Rebellious Foods and Kristie for joining me and sharing so much about the company and their mission and process. I had a lot of fun and I hope that you all enjoyed learning right alongside of me. And if you feel so inspired to try one of Rebellious's products, you can head over to their website that's linked in the episode description to either order directly from them or use their store locator to find their products near you. And if you end up trying them, let me know. Shoot me a DM on Instagram or send over an email. But other than that, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you all, and I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, stay rad. Bye.